Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for putting up with my bullshit. But you're here, and I appreciate it. And we're all in one piece, and we're almost on time here, which is pretty good for me.
Yeah.
How'd you two meet?
So it was
Part two?
Yeah, part two. Yeah, let me try and recall now.
Touche.
I want to say it was probably like about 4 years ago. Christian came through the door of my brewery,
Butler Brew Works.
Yeah, Butler Brew Works. Yeah, that place.
Yep, up in Butler.
Yep, up in Butler. He was just getting his shit off the ground. But some of the laws had laxed up in Pennsylvania for breweries to be able to carry Pennsylvania-made spirits.
Got it. And
so he came in to introduce me to a distillery owner and try and sell some product. Mm-hmm. And we agreed to let him show up with tons of liquor, put a bunch of booze on our bar for us to try, make cocktails with, whatever we wanted to do, trying to work the deals and stuff. But from the start, I appreciated his hustle. I can always recognize someone that's going after it. And it was evident. So anyways, from a business standpoint, it made sense. We started ordering stuff through him. We have been ever since. And so our friendship sort of blossomed from there. And we've now taken it into a bigger business relationship.
On all kinds of fronts.
Yeah.
We sell Butler. My company now sells Butler Brew Works.
Right.
We represent them, per se.
Okay.
We don't buy and resell. We
Christian, turn this for me, will you? To get this more in front of you. Or
like
however
that?
you want. You can actually turn
good?
this, I think, a little bit too, maybe. It might be maxed out. I don't know. Yeah. Just maxed out. Yeah, whatever works for you. I just wanted you in front of you. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. We so that's the strength of the relationship. But I mean, prior to that, I did a lot of different. I got like old used whiskey barrels from different distilleries that were my clients for Butler Brew Works. We did all kinds of different like marketing, cross promotion things, and so we were definitely for being an hour north of Pittsburgh, per se. I definitely spent some time up that way, and they're by far from what I know is the best brewery in Butler County and one of the best in the western part of the state. So those guys, his business partners Nate and Nick, those guys, they just they're figuring it out. They and they have a full restaurant up there too. So they're not just making beer. They have a full thing up there. So they get good clientele. They used to buy a lot more whiskey and stuff, but then since their beer's gotten so much better, people don't buy as much mixed cocktails.
He cries when I tell him what percentage of sales our cocktail program is. So it's like, why can't it be more? And I'm like, because it doesn't need to be.
That's what you want in a partner. You want them to be honest, right?
Yeah, well, hence our now relationship with Bonafide Beer Company, with our new brewery venture and stuff like that. Right. And the whole essence of Bonafide is
who came up with the name?
Yeah,
who came up with the name?
I think Christian actually threw it. We were bouncing ideas back and forth for a couple weeks, but when he threw it in a text message, I was in. I like it.
Yeah, Oh Brother Or Out Thou, when the George Clooney's wife or former wife was in the store. The thrift.
You're not Bonafide.
You're not Bonafide. He's Bonafide. He's a job.
That's a funny movie.
Didn't you get run over by a train? Yeah. So we were looking for a word that kind of represented our business relationship and what we've been through in life and what we've been through in business too, mostly. And we like the idea of having a business relationship that was like pure, and it was what we call 50-50. It's in our branding. And
you learned your lesson from the prior sort of thing.
Absolutely, from other business like deals, and it's it's a learning curve, and we're both still young. We're still figuring it out. I mean, what we're going to know in 20 years from now is going to be,
of course,
almost as much as you know now.
Of course, you're not close. There's room at the top. I'll let you up.
Yeah. But yeah, Butler's been doing great things, and they're we're about to launch them in all the Giant Eagles and
Yeah.
I should.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so they can. You guys got a new canning line,
Yeah.
and you guys been. I don't know. You should visit their brewery, like what
I
they
should.
started with.
I should.
I remember they used to have space for barrels back there and an office.
We have space for nothing now.
Bursting at the seams.
Yeah, I don't have space to sit down.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. No, it's definitely good. But yeah, it's been fun growing and
So another beer for you.
another beer for me.
Yeah, like Bonafide, right?
Yeah. Well, Christian had pitched ideas like before, and
You don't
talked
say.
about, yeah,
I'm so surprised by that.
I mean, so usually, like I'm used to hearing these things, but at one point, it just it sounded like a fun venture,
Right.
and the brand that we're coming up with and the beers that we want to make, it's something different. I don't want to say, I mean, it's not wacky different or
Yeah.
anything like that, but it's kind of a different business model from most craft breweries that are opening up in sort of a local neighborhood kind of small brewery, slow growth kind of thing. I think what we're trying to do is go after people who buy beers they can rely on,
Yeah.
staples. They like to buy a case of something,
Right.
they know they can count on it. They don't want to sit and fuss over it and take notes and rate it and all those things. It's good beer, and there are a lot of big breweries making stuff like that, but I think there's still some space in it.
Yeah, it's the production factor.
Okay.
A lot of breweries, a lot of people don't realize when you start a brewery, you're pretty much becoming a restaurateur. And,
Why is that?
Because the real money's in selling it in a glass over a bar top,
Got it.
rather than there's money in canning too. Don't get me wrong, but the mass distribution, it's a lot less profit margin.
Got it.
But it also takes so much working capital and cash flow to be able to build a team. And my back end company, Pennsylvania Libations, we have an infrastructure and we have a sales team. So it's almost kind of like, why wouldn't I start a brewery?
Right.
Why wouldn't I, or
It's a
another
logical
brewery?
fit.
Exactly, because I'd like to think that everything's already in house. Travis makes phenomenal beer, has that background to be able to make me understand like what's feasible and what's not. But the goal would be is to try to kick out like a really tasty lager that would rival Yingling in that sense of that flavor profile, but also maybe more towards a German style. That's up to Travis here. But my goal is, what do I want to chug real fast after cutting my grass at home, right? And what am I going to pick up at the beer distributor? A case of that's like less than $30, hopefully, right?
Yeah?
A case of lager from a craft brewery is going to cost you 50 north,
Right,
probably.
right.
So my whole idea is with the IPAs is it's about building a brand. Like
Right.
most people just they need to keep the lights on, so they're doing what they're selling it by the glass. For me, it is not really so much about keeping the lights on. It's about hitting the switch. Like imagine starting a brewery. And my company, we have about 25 staff members. So being able to utilize that company as your sales force,
Right.
Travis making good beers, and then some of our other relationships that we have with other breweries doing large-scale contract brewing where Travis would go in and work with the brewer that runs the operations,
Okay.
and he'd be brewing the beer with that brewer. And they would do anywhere from 60-barrel batches to 120-barrel batches, kicking out, I don't know, right, like 60 pallets worth of beer or something like that. No,
I don't remember. I have to do that.
I forget what the 30-barrel batch was, but it was a lot.
It is a lot.
It's like 600 cases?
600 cases, something.
Wow.
Of each beer. Like we were gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna do a hazy IPA, essentially what I'm drinking, what he made with the Top Pocket from Butler, something in that realm, and then a lager, and then maybe throw a third style beer and do mix and match 12 packs
Got
and
it.
the whole thing. But really, it's distribution. We built really great relationships with a lot of big buyers across the state of Pennsylvania.
Got it.
And
Well, your
so-
infrastructure's already in place.
Exactly. Which
From Pennsylvania Libations, it's already there.
there's no brewery that opens their doors in the state of Pennsylvania with infrastructure like what we have,
Yeah.
unless you got serious capital.
Got it.
Yeah.
And
Got it.
then most likely you got a lot of people's hands in the pockets anyway. So what's the end result of that?
Yeah.
So my goal is to, that was like, why not? So
Right.
And Travis and I, we became good friends, and as we've hung out more and through this business relationship, we've realized that like this was a great fit, and our operating agreement speaks loudly to that too.
Yeah.
So, as we call it, punching each other in the throat. Like, what do you mean? If you die, what happens to your half? Like,
Right.
pop, punch in the throat.
Yeah, we learned like we like each other now.
Michael is to only be around long enough that he likes me, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll go to Florida. I'm out. I'll go to Florida for a week. Nah, but I mean, I got great staff. Like that's the great staff that want to brew with Travis. They want
Right.
to learn how to brew.
Right.
Like we look at this as an educational part where like we have so many people that love craft beer that work for my company and that he's friends with and stuff. That'd be really easy to like bring one of the people in that like one of my delivery drivers, Anthony, knows more about craft beer than probably anybody I've ever met.
Okay.
Die hard. And he's like, dude, he's like, let me brew, man. He's like, and he's super like, in a good way, OCD to the point where he
Well,
clean.
you need that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
90% of brewing's cleaning.
Yeah.
9% paperwork, 1% brewing.
Right.
So like
Right.
if you have someone that's OCD clean, like if somebody walked in the back while he's cleaning, he'd be like, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing?
He's one of those guys.
I need that. I mean, yeah, I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
There's so many areas I want to go here. So you basically went in business with a beer guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. In any other circumstance, that could be a very bad thing, but not in the beer business.
No.
No, I don't think so. I trust Travis, and he's gonna decide what beers are gonna be the right kind of beers, and my job is to sell them.
So it sounds like what you mentioned prior is that you're interested in that price point for proliferation, wide scale proliferation, right?
Yeah, with our branding, even like Bonafide, I mean, it's the branding, but even like their can designs and our logo and stuff like that. I mean, where my head's at is like, how would the market foresee it? Like,
Got it. Of course.
And
Of course.
So say,
Marketing in you.
your someone's mom was like going to the grocery store to grab like, food for Thanksgiving, and her son told her like, hey, pick me up some beers. And like, what kind of beer? Give me a lager and an IPA. She's not going to know what to buy. But if she
There's
sees
a lot of options right
a
now.
lot of options.
Absolutely.
So our branding's going towards like what makes sense on the shelf, not like on
Got
these
it.
funky art designs, which are awesome, and I love
Right.
everything about craft beer art. Like it's so much fun to see the cans, but then there's also like I don't know what that is. Like I literally have to pick it up and investigate it for 15, 20 seconds before I
Right.
figure out what kind of beer it is. I understand that, but that's probably the 2% that know what that beer is just by looking at the label.
It's kind of like in my business, my prior business is like, bands would have to do their own marketing, and then you see a death metal. All the death metal bands had these really cryptic like logos, look like they twigs thrown in a pile, and their names spelled out, and you can't tell what the fuck it
Right.
is, right?
How do I pronounce
the worst
that
marketing
symbol?
imaginable, right? And that's why that genre is so unfortunately not that popular.
Yeah.
So, but the marketing, yeah. So it might be cool to them, or maybe their small group of fans. But if you can't catch it, doesn't mean anything to the average person. It's not any good.
Yeah.
Well, the way I look at it is, if you go into a beer distributor right now that does carry local craft brands and everything, they've got maybe a shelf and part of a cooler dedicated to those beers.
Got it.
And they're all very colorful, lots of cool art, lots of
Yeah.
cool beers. The rest of that beer distributor is full of classic brands that people recognize and have come to know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're after, is when people see our product, they know what it is. They don't have to do that investigating that Christian talked about.
See, so would you say it's kind of a weird dynamic because, and the only thing I can compare it to is my prior life, where you had a gentleman who creates a guitar company, and the raving reviews are amazing. The guy's making an instrument, in his little factory there that celebrities are flying in to buy, but because he's so into that product, and he doesn't know anything about marketing and is ignorant to it and doesn't care to learn it or even hire anybody to do it, his growth is just so limited.
Yeah.
He won't step outside of his comfort circle. And I think that's the problem with a lot of businesses. But I'd imagine in beer is the same thing. If the person brewing the beer is only concerned about the quality of it, but has no way to get their message out, it ain't gonna work.
Yeah, well,
Sure.
that's yin and yang.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So he's
absolutely.
Like, I mean, Travis is also not just a brewer. I mean, he's definitely marketing savvy.
I get it.
He's design
I get
savvy.
it.
He has all those things. Like Butler Brew Works definitely proves that.
Right.
But in my former past business deals, that's not the point. It's
right.
that person.
I get
they
it.
make beer. I sell the beer.
Right.
But that's essentially it, cut and dry what we're doing here. But
Mm-hmm.
we both, I think, have that. I trust when I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And he's like, back and forth, and I don't know, like the trial and errors and stuff, and the design of the brand and things like that. We really worked through it. We had a great guy, Nick Cobbler. He's pretty famous. Actually, I didn't realize how well known he was until I mentioned him to one of my employees. That's been
He's doing the artwork for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
He and when I mentioned his name, he's like, "Dude, Nick Cobbler's doing your artwork." I'm like, "Yeah, man." And he's like, "No way!" Like, it was kind of funny. Like, I don't know, graphic design was like that.
Well, of course, there's a circle there, right? There's
You would have Nick Cobbler would be the kind of guy that would have designed Patagonia or Orvis's branding.
I'm with
like,
you.
You know what I mean? He's that sleek and just like really, really smart guy, and process is great. And I'm working on him on our newest project and stuff like that. But other than Bonafide, he's really helped us out build that brand, because he knows the beer world. He loves craft beer. And you'd be really surprised how hard it is to find your own brand these days.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, there's so many. When you think you did it first, you didn't do it first. Other than Donata.
Yeah.
You'll be first. You'll be first with that for about another 2 hours.
Yeah. Exactly.
Remember, it wasn't said before yet, so
got
nobody
it.
knows what that means.
I understand. I understand. Yeah. Is in launching this project compared to your prior projects, speak a little bit about the balance between launching and promotion ahead of time, and then revealing too much too early, because that is a thing.
It definitely is.
Especially, I would imagine, in beer, recipes, formulas, names, all that stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You gotta throw teasers out every once in a while.
You do. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it took Butler Brew Works almost 5 years to get open. Once we formed our company, bought a property, it was almost 5 years.
5 years.
Well, we were brand new business owners.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were getting into. So we had a lot figured out. We had a great plan, but obviously we didn't have enough money.
Okay.
That's always part of it. So you have to go hunt down more money. In the meantime, we're going out promoting, we're opening this brewery downtown Butler, and everybody's like, when? We're like, pretty soon.
Isn't that the story of most new business? Coming
is.
soon.
But, we had to stay relevant. We didn't want people to think that we were going away because we weren't open, that they must have thrown the towel. And what I would always tell people is, even though our followers were getting frustrated that we weren't open yet, I said, do you think when we actually open our doors that they're not going to come in because it took us too long?
Right.
They'll be there.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'd say 4 seasons. We got incorporated. The idea was 2011, and we didn't get going until 2013. It's fall, so like 2.5 years, I think, total.
That's amazing.
But that's like, and the building was a blank slate. Like, we had to do new drains, and like it was like paint the walls with concrete paint, and build the whole thing out, and also come up with the money.
Yeah.
Which we luckily had my family and his family come up with half each, essentially.
Right.
And that's always a process.
Mm-hmm.
There's real money in owning a brewery these days, but like it's like I was saying earlier, was like, you have to be in the mentality that you're going to be pretty much a pub owner or like a restaurateur.
Mm-hmm.
And the front of house management is no joke. If you've never done it before and you're not a pro, and even if you're lucky enough to find the perfect person to help you run it, they're not going to be very cheap either. So it's a thing.
Yeah, it's like you're owning a restaurant, bar, and restaurant.
Yeah.
And the core business.
Yeah.
Just the brewery.
And a production facility, yeah.
Yeah. So you got a production facility gentleman here. Then you got like his other business partners at Butler that would know how to run the front of the house, or if they, and then you got a sales, like another business partner that's like a brand ambassador. So they got like a trifecta kind of going here and there. But they, they also have like I believe like a front of house manager of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing with me is like my company, we manage this location at 1700 for Helltown. And that's my first endeavor as ever running a bar or restaurant. And I don't run it. I manage it and oversee it, but I try to not to micromanage. But I can tell you, it's difficult. It's not easy at all. Like but even if you find amazing workers and stuff, there's still the whole, like just the combustion of like different people. And with COVID, liability. And the roles, liability, liquor liability. Like, talk about a nightmare, but it's a lot of fun, and there's money to be made. I'm like, we're doing just fine at 50% capacity,
right?
And I don't even like. Part of me is like, holy, like, what's going to happen when we're at 100% and we're allowed bar stools back and like all this other stuff? It's going to be a whole nother thing, and so.
Help me understand this barstool thing, because I went into a local establishment here to meet a client about 2 weeks ago up in Robinson. That's as much as I'll tell you. You can figure it out. But I went in there, and the bar was open, or people were in and out of the bar. There was some plastic shields, like every 4 bar stools there's a plastic shield. But people were mingling at the bar. They were going to the bathroom without putting masks on. And I ended up leaving. Only because I just wasn't ready to be in that jammed into a circumstance, unmasked yet, in my own headspace. Yep. I probably was okay, but I wasn't ready. But I was amazed that was the first bar I had seen that was actually open. Are you allowed to be open?
Absolutely not. I mean, your bar seating. I think the idea between getting for getting rid of the bar seating was to prevent someone from going out just for alcohol.
Okay.
They want you to be able to go out to have a meal and enjoy alcohol with your meal, but not just go out and drink. The bar seating is social. It encourages more drinking. I don't know.
Your inhibition's lower.
Yeah.
As soon as you drink 4 IPAs, your mask is like.
You don't say.
Yeah. What mask? Don't yell at me.
But
I
don't know.
On top of the urinal.
Use your mask to cover your beer while you put it on top of the urinal.
I'm sure that's going on for sure.
I mean, I can tell you, just at our brewery, as much as we follow all the guidelines and everything, people are people, and they interpret things their own way, or they don't care, or whatever. So there's always situations where I don't necessarily feel comfortable.
Right.
We didn't get in the business of policing people, and that's the hard part about it.
I bet. But in this establishment, the bar seating was permitted. That's why that's a decision.
That is. That's
right now, the
stance.
state law is you're not allowed to have any bar stools at the bar, regardless if you have dividers or not.
Oh, then this must be a rib. We'll talk off air.
No, I could easily say that I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of bars outside of the city limits of Pittsburgh that are just doing their thing.
Yeah.
Whenever they get caught, they get caught. And the locals, they don't advertise it. Only really the locals that know that bar owner or that restaurant owner.
So this is not a local bar. This is a destination spot.
Yeah.
In Robinson Township. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was fucking busy.
Okay.
Well, so there's bar stools. So there's restaurants like what we do at 1700. We have 4 top or 2 top tables adjacent or butted up to the bar.
I've seen that done.
And you're not supposed to pour over or hand your beer over the bar top. So that was a thing. But then I've seen bars doing the exact same thing we're doing, and they're handing their beers over the bar. So like, what's the gray area there? But then instead of walking out around the bar, and so it's like there's so many iffy things right now, and I can honestly say I haven't really seen any bars or restaurants getting like their doors knocked down by the health department. Like I haven't really seen that like Allegheny really busting chops that much lately, specifically because it's January and February. It's already hard enough. Everybody got the legs cut out from under them in December with 3 weeks being shut down. So maybe they're just kind of like let them go. And then whenever the weather breaks and people start going back out again, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, they'll be back at it. But It's hard to say.
It's frustrating because you went in and as just being a patron somewhere, you don't know the rules that these bars and restaurants are held to. So you see people sitting at the bar, then you walk out and you come into my place, and we're like, you can't sit at the bar. You have to wear a mask. You have to do this. You have to do that. And you're like, well, they didn't make me. This must be optional. You must be an asshole.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see
I
where.
got one of those on Saturday up around 1700. People were like, "Why?" We were told that we had to leave, and I'm like, they messaged me on Instagram or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, we have a problem Saturday night. We had a great time. We had great beers, great food. Spent $90, left a $20 tip, but the server told me I had to leave because they had another table coming in." And I'm like, "Well, you had a reservation from this time to this time. Average turnover is 75 to 90 minutes on a 4-top or less, and we had a reservation. You spent your time there." And I told him, I was like, "Look, this is normal. 50% capacity. We got to turn tables."
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like
But that's something new for the industry, right? I mean, because you could generally.
Well,
right?
they showed up probably at like 5, and then realized or like 4:35 with the reservation, but then realized that we had live music. And they're like, they wanted to stick around after they paid their bill. They're like, wait, well, we want to stay now all of a sudden. Right. And then our people told them that they had to leave, and they had a problem. I was like, look, come back. I'll buy your first rounds for a 4-top, and we'll listen to some music together and stuff like that. But like that's so people. To Travis's point, not everybody understands the restaurant industry whatsoever, let alone the laws. So like trying to educate people constantly. I
bet that's a struggle.
Yeah,
it is. But you know what? I would like to think when the storm calms, I think the service industry might be better off.
Could be,
because a lot more people had to understand the rules of the game.
There is a lot more sympathy towards restaurants and the people that work in them now. Yeah.
Well, there should be.
There should be a lot fewer complaints about stupid shit like they didn't bring me my napkins I asked for or something. Like, just ask again, and somebody forgot.
I think it's amazing, though, that are you forced by the way Pennsylvania law is you must have an eating establishment to be? Can you be a standalone brewery
with no food?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can have food trucks if you want, but right now you have to serve food with an alcoholic beverage.
So you're saying you could do a brewery, but you could not let anybody, if you didn't want to do the food thing, you could not let anybody drink on site.
Are we talking pandemic or like overall?
Overall. Before pandemic.
Before pandemic.
If you and I wanted to open a brewery, okay, he would kill me. But if you and I decided to do that, I'm just saying. But I said to you, look, I don't want to. I think we can make a go at this. But I don't want to drink on site. I just want to have the brewery, and we want to send some sales folks out and sell the product, but not taste the product on site.
Yeah,
is that permitted?
Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely.
Does that happen anywhere?
Rarely. Just because of what Christian talked about earlier, the money's in the glass.
Got it.
Over the bar sales, it's almost stupid not to have that aspect of it, and you can work around the whole like Christian said, like having a food truck rather than a kitchen.
It happens across the street. Here's a place where we're located. They have a food truck a couple times a week.
Yeah. But I mean, for someone like me who likes to make beer and likes producing and all that kind of stuff, I would love to just be working in a factory where people didn't come in and out and want to see the place and all that stuff. I like to keep my head down. I like to be in my own environment and all those things.
But that's part of the tour, right? That's part of the experience.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay.
I got to drink the beer where it's made. I got to look at the tank that it came out of.
That's cool as shit, though, man.
And see the
I'm
person
not really a
that
big
made
beer
it.
Guy, but that's cool as shit.
It is. I get the whole experience of it, and I appreciate it 100%.
Well, I wouldn't have met him if he wasn't stuck in his brewery making beer where I could just walk in the door and be like, buy something from him.
I'm in a fishbowl, man.
Yeah, he is in a fishbowl.
We got windows the whole way across the front of the brewery, so everything I do in the back is seen.
Right on.
And
right on.
Sometimes I just want to go buy some curtains.
Can't pick your nose,
right?
Yeah, like
that's a piece of back here. That's a whole special label for you right there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, the restaurant thing throws to me like a big curveball to the whole thing. It does. I mean, that's a whole level of aggravation, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without the pandemic, like what we're doing with 1700, like because we're a management company for a brewery,
Right.
we have to have food or we're going to be considered a bar. And then your liquor liability insurance is 10 times more. But if you're a manufacturing,
Wait, back up. Make sure I'm clear on this. You can be just a bar in Pennsylvania.
but your insurance is going to be 10 times more.
So okay, because I was told in local bars around here that I moonlighted at 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So when the owner was saying to me, "Shit, we have to get that kitchen open," in some regarding, it wasn't that he would be in trouble with the state. It's just that he probably was applied for his insurance or liability insurance as a restaurant, but he wasn't operating as a restaurant. Is that pretty much what the
There's a difference between a restaurant and a bar,
Got
for
it.
sure.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, but a brewery with a manufacturing license so if your brewery is located there, you don't have to have those 60% of food sales and things like that to keep your liquor liability down. You can have no food sales or just food trucks and not show any food sales at all because of that. And that's one of the things right now with Bonafide's first location in the Strip District is like we have pretty much eradicated the kitchen. Like we took the kitchen out and we put a brewing small 2-barrel system in there, and we're thinking, okay, but right now we now have to have food. But what's nice is that we like the Strip District's the food court, right?
No doubt.
But we could do something very, very simple, and for the weekends, and we talked about, in our occupancy in such a small space is probably going to be a 50%, probably be like 20 people tops.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine by me because I'm starting to love people. I'm just kidding. A lot less than people. No, I love everybody. But we
you stole my line, man.
Yeah.
As you say it with your eyes rolling.
But there's a couple different. I haven't really brought this up with Travis yet, but part of my thought
Here we go. You can do it right here, buddy.
Was make the Strip District location almost private. Like you have to be a member to get it, and
exclusive.
I hate it. I don't want to be a part of this anymore.
He wants to make beer for the people, man.
Yeah, right. No, but what's nice about the Bonafide location in the Strip District, it used to be where it's where Chicken Latino used to be, and a lot of people probably are like, I'm never drinking Bonafide because you guys kicked out Chicken Latino, and I'm like, no, Chicken Latino is a success story. As much as you would think that, what would a quesadilla get you? But she bought a building in Beachview or Bellevue or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's Bellevue.
Yeah.
And she bought a restaurant. She bought a turnkey restaurant up there. She owns the building.
Right.
She did really well for herself. I think she was in the Strip for 13 years.
Right.
Became a staple, and it's a great location. It's right around the corner from my liquor store. And the concept with that space was that it was just it's a billboard.
Right.
A billboard
Right.
on Liberty Avenue in the Strip District costs $5,000 a month. Our rent's more than half that. Let's put it that way. And the mentality there is that if we have a billboard and we actually get to make money off that billboard, it almost makes sense. Why not to brand ourselves? Even if we're not open just yet, it's the idea where people are walking by daily on a weekend. Thousands, tens of thousands of people have already seen our brand, and we haven't even made beer yet. Right. So that's to me, that's the difference between what we're doing versus what other breweries are doing. But I mean, it's hard to compare yourself to like Grist House. People will go to Grist House.
Yeah.
Dancing Gnome. People go to Dancing Gnome.
Right.
Will people drive an hour up the Butler Brew Works? Some will, but that's also been a fighting angst too for those guys up there too.
Yeah.
But Bonafide, that's why I said the Strip, the location. Also, I wanted to make sure that no other brewery or distillery moved in on that spot and kind of made competition for me.
Got it.
Christian's good at playing defense.
Yes.
Yeah. I see that.
Yeah. I don't at any available spot that happens in the Strip District, if I could put a business model in there, I will continue to take every spot I can in the historic Strip. Then we have the produce terminal up and coming.
Yeah.
That 5-block long building.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's some things going in there.
Exciting and scary at the same time.
It is.
Yeah. Because, is it going to steal traffic? Is it going to, a little bit, but is it going to bring new traffic in?
Maybe.
There's probably part of that too.
Yeah.
So
anybody that goes into any of those buildings, they're either got more money than they know what to do with,
right,
or they're going to fail in the first year.
Right.
So there's that whole back and forth. There's like you want more businesses to come to the Strip. It's going to be the new downtown, and it'll be good for, I think, everybody involved with the historic Strip, because I think when people are like, oh, we're going to the city, where should we go? Instead of saying go to Market Square, go downtown Pittsburgh, people are going to be like, you got to go to the Strip on both anthems, not just like the tourists, but also anybody. Because they're going to have like the new, like modern day Chicago, New York style, like restaurants and like, you know, concepts and stuff like that Pittsburgh hasn't seen yet. And it's going to attract people that are used to seeing those kind of things that will want to go
Certainly.
to that.
Is there any breweries in Southside?
No. Hitchhiker was going to be there at one point in time.
I drove through there this morning going to see a real estate client. I haven't been down in the Southside in a while. And again, it's daylight, so I'm looking around.
I mean, unless you count like Hofbrau House up in...
Yeah, and Fatheads is down there, but they're not a real brewery.
They're bar.
There are bars there.
Yeah, the laws in the Strip District are very difficult. It's the Historic Society, I think, with pounding holes through buildings and for water lines and gas lines and sewage and stuff like that. That's, I think, one of the main reasons why Hitchhiker didn't end up in Southside is because they wanted to poke a hole through the back of the building. And the Historic Society, I think there's a local county, like not a commissioner, like somebody that kind of is the political person in the South Side. Definitely put his foot down.
Well, that's not helping progress, is it?
I mean, no.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know. They're making the movie theater in the South Side of the offices.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah, it blows my mind too.
$5 Mondays or whatever was great. That place was packed every Monday.
Especially in light of, is the pandemic a seismic event to the scale that it changes the way that we do business, and then maybe we're not going to house people anymore, as much. So you still see new office structures going up.
I'm surprised to see offices.
It blows my mind.
Yeah, honestly.
Well, they know something we don't.
They might.
I guess.
Maybe the Roaring '20s is truly coming.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to go great. Maybe society in a good way and the economy be pulled along in an insane way the next 5 years. Who knows? It happened 100 years ago.
That's right.
There was the Roaring '20s in 1920, right?
I like it.
Everybody dressed really nice.
Yeah, drank a lot of alcohol.
I think the Art Deco movement came out of that era too. There's a lot of cool shit that came out of that era.
I agree.
I think so. Talk a little more about the pandemic in regards to the restaurant industry. In that, I think there's a lot of I think business owners that are savvy and those that, quote unquote, I hate this word, but were able to pivot in certain ways and recreate their businesses are okay. Some are thriving. You're doing great. There's a lot of people in the restaurant business and bar business that are dying. Not even the owners. I mean, the employees of suffering businesses. And I was talking to a bartender friend of mine who had been bartending for a long time, and they love it with everything they have. Went to school for mixology, took it real serious, gets paid pretty well, but has been really displaced by this. And he is ready to give up on it. He's like, I'm not alone. He goes, the people that I, know in this industry are just getting beaten. We don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would recommend go to Florida. The governor of Florida was like, as a joke, I saw a meme said was like he was the real estate guru of the year in the country because he filled a lot of vacant apartments and a lot of houses and brought a lot of extra workers to the state because they're the only thing open.
Yeah.
I know people that are making $1,000 a week down there bartending.
Oh, I believe it. I definitely believe it. That's what I'm saying. Do you think there will be a lingering effect on the restaurant business, or do you think the recovery is going to be quick?
Pittsburgh's already terrible at it. I mean, we're hurt. We're suffering at having a lot of lifers in the industry, right? So many people. I feel like Pittsburgh, we didn't have that fine 3-star Michelin star style dining experiences here, where it was like a job, it was a career,
right?
And you took it very seriously. There are some restaurants I think in Pittsburgh that are a little bit like that, not a lot though. And I feel like I'm just being a part of this industry in Pittsburgh, I felt like we're in need of a lot more professional chefs and professional cooks.
I believe that.
And bartenders and servers and stuff, the people that are very, very good at it. And so it kind of hurt us, I think, before, but even now, now maybe there's more jobs available because there's less restaurants, but like at the same time is what are people are going to be like, what happens if it shuts down again? I'm going to get into real estate.
That's always going to be the thing. It's like, what happens if this happens again?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, I think people saw how unstable their position could be or how vulnerable it is. And if they're not making money, I mean, it's easy to not think forward a little bit, like what's going to happen next year or the year after when you're pulling in $300 or $400 a night in tips and cash and off the books and all that good stuff. There's a lot of benefits to that position. But when times are tough, you're like, well, shit, I mean, maybe I need to think about doing something else. And I see that happening a lot.
In Philadelphia, everybody in the restaurant game is now doing real estate. I have a couple friends that are brand ambassadors for like national brands and stuff like that in Philly, and are been working as bartenders. Like, it's now like the norm to be like going and having a beer at a bar or something like that, and the bartender's like, "Oh, what's new?" And like, you talking back and forth, like, "Oh yeah, I got my real estate license. I'm if you want to buy a house."
The problem with that, and there is a problem with that, is that like anything else, that's a bubble right now. And I do it every day. And yes, there are a lot of new agents, which is fine. But the market will change. Right now, it's a tough market because there's no listings. There's lots of buyers and lots of new agents running around with buyers trying to find properties, which is, it's great for sellers. But it really needs to flatten out to be stable, and it's not. And it's going to come at some point in time. So that... we're seeing a stress in our business because of lack of listings, but also the influx of a lot of weekend warrior agents, and that I don't know are serving the industry well. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of jobs out there, but what is our the national rates like 28% or something like that, 25 to 28%. Used to be like 6 or 7.
Crazy. It's crazy.
And so it's there's a lot of people unemployed out there.
Yeah.
1 in 4 Americans.
I know.
1 in 4 Americans don't have a job.
I think that
it's crazy.
A certain amount. Well, there's a lot of government money floating around out there too, and some people that really needed it didn't get it. But I think that those who were compensated to stay at home, or were kept whole, or close to whole, or whatever, some of those folks, I imagine, probably got comfortable with that arrangement. And that can't last forever. It's going to change. So we're in for some. Yeah, I think we're going to be okay. We just got to open up society at some point. We have to go back to let people do the stuff that they love to do, enjoy their life, and work hard. I think Americans work hard. We just got to be permitted to do so. I want to talk beer for a little bit here. Yeah. You're the beer guru, so I want to talk beer
that's my specialty.
Yeah.
Craft beer.
That's right. When your sidekick was on last time, we talked a little bit about the history of spirits and mainstream and advertising, and because that was also very crazy to me. It just kind of like we were talking that 10 years ago, all of a sudden there was Jack Daniel's commercials on the radio, like out of the blue. I'm like, well, they don't advertise spirits and nicotine, right? You don't advertise that. And all of a sudden that loosened up, and then you started seeing specialized whiskeys and bourbons, and that was interesting. So like that whole industry loosened up, I guess, on regulation, right? That was a part of it.
I think so, but it was also like, where do you spend your marketing dollars? Like, there's only so many signs that you can buy for a dive bar that says Jack Daniels. Right? So next thing you need to do is, get Ryan Reynolds to come in and build your gin brand, and you sell it for $800 million.
I get it. Yeah. I get it.
There's definitely, where do you put your money these days? And it's in a different market, which is video and pictures.
Right. Absolutely.
They definitely promote a lifestyle in that industry, not so much the product.
Okay. So on the beer front, craft beer, I think we touched a little bit on that last show. Sam Adams first came on my radar as an odd beer that tasted a little odd. I didn't know what an IPA was. I didn't know what a lager was. I was drinking Budweiser and Coors Light. That's what I was drinking.
Sure.
But Sam Adams was a specialized beer. It was a little more expensive, a little more at the time, but it was strong and pungent, and it was like, it was different.
Yeah.
That's all I knew of craft beer. And then I saw these friends of mine that were really diving into it, lock, stock, and barrel. So I guess, can you give me like a little timeline of how, maybe starting with the mid 80s or early 90s, and how it progressed to where we are now, where it's like this amazing, I don't know, it's just
I'll be over here drinking my beer. Get it, Travis, get it.
Yeah, I mean, independently owned breweries, what we call craft beer, has gone through waves, definitely since the 80s. Going back,
what was the first one that you were aware of on your, what was the first? Was there a national craft beer or a craft beer that became nationalized? It was kind of sparked a movement.
I would say Sierra Nevada.
Okay.
They're
Pale Ale.
Yeah, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Right.
Everybody knows about it.
Strong shit.
it's sort of a gateway beer for a lot of people, but that company has done a lot for the industry and sort of paved the way.
Okay.
Followed by many others, but it's gone in waves. Right after Prohibition is when the country had gone from having roughly, I think, 4,000, 5,000 breweries in the country, and there were a lot of neighborhood pubs, and that's where you got your beer, to then the only ones that survived Prohibition were the ones with money.
Okay.
Big families with a lot of money to put into these things. We started seeing, trying to think of the Brooklyn brewery, guy's name, Garrett Oliver, likes to talk about the era when there were two types of cheese at the grocery store, and there was one type of bread, and now there's one type of beer, the American light lager. So everybody kind of honed in on, this is what beer is, this is what cheese is, whatever.
Okay.
It wasn't until a lot later that people were becoming more worldly, trying international things, and that they started to specialize products again.
Right.
So I would say late 80s is when some of that started to happen in beer. Throughout the 90s, there was a bit of a craft beer boom with brewery restaurants. Most of them were going for sort of a chain model, I think. Breweries like Rock Bottom or Gordon Biersch. That was kind of the thing at that time, but a lot of them failed. We had a dip again. I can't really say what it was that sparked this most recent round of craft beer, and why so many breweries have become wildly successful. But it happened early 2000s.
Okay.
Is when it really started to catch on.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it kind of parallels a lot of what's happened with small business in general. People are interested in supporting local businesses and independently owned businesses, and the fact that a small brewery can make a lot wider variety of beers with more interesting labels, I think it's just really stuck.
Do the internet help the craft beer industry, or was it more of the connectivity of the human connectivity of the internet that helped craft beer?
Yeah, I guess it helps because traditional beer marketing is the billboards,
okay,
and the commercials with girls in bikinis and stuff like that.
NFL games.
Yeah, exactly. So now that we all have sort of a level playing field of advertising through social media,
okay,
we get the same platform, or something that people probably pay attention to a lot more actually than they do TV commercials.
Well, there's a lot more uniqueness too in presentation.
Yeah,
and I think we talked about
Nobody's
that. Nobody's
raging about Budweiser. Nobody's going on their Instagram being like, "Yo, I'm drinking this Budweiser." Like you know what I mean? Even if they're at a Chris Stapleton concert, you know what I mean? But if you're at a brewery and you're drinking a heady IPA,
it's an experience.
And you're like, dude, check me out. This is what I'm doing. This is for the gram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
that's what I did.
My mind wants to
Columbia,
explode.
Anytime I was thinking about taking a picture, I was like, this is only for the gram. Like, this is nothing to do about it's a really pretty picture, but like, why else would I take it? Like, it's to kind of just let everybody know back home, like, what I was doing through the time. But like back, with the beer, the history of that is definitely social media is king. There's multiple group pages like breweries in Pennsylvania, like Pittsburgh Whiskey Friends. Like there's different channels where like is the go-to, where people are like, hey, I'm going to be in this town. What brewery should I go to? Hey, I'm going to be doing this like 400-mile loop. Where would you go? Like, and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, well, just look it up yourself. But like, definitely people have some insider things where I hear about breweries that I've never knew were even alive or even open. And it's pretty cool to see that. Like, so there's definitely that part of it too. Is
it's incorporated in their lives. You know what I mean? Like their love for beer is incorporated in. I mean, they're in their freaking vacations and shit, right? I mean,
absolutely. I think one of the common sayings in the industry right now is you're not a brewery, you're a marketing company that makes beer.
Yep.
So it is a big part of it.
Yeah, that's why I love the idea of owning a brewery again with Travis, is that I love marketing. I love creating. Right? And if it's not just creating beer, it's creating a brand and coming up with
the image that goes with
like,
it, the image within the brand, and the graphics and the presentation.
The quality of the product is still paramount in this industry. Anybody that's in the business of making it takes some level of pride in it. But there is such a shift, or putting the focus on the marketing aspect to get people excited about what you just put out, more so than just relying on the product itself.
Yeah, you got like your hype people, definitely like breweries like Dancing Gnome. I mean, they're probably like the epic center of hype people. Like they got great beer, they deserve all the hype they get. But like it blows my mind that like they have a line 300 people deep for a beer release for $100 cases, $800 18 packs.
Dude, they're minting money over there.
Yeah, they're expanding right now.
Kudos. I always say I hate the game. I don't hate the players.
Of course not.
I mean,
of course not.
Those guys are doing a great job. But it's interesting how that hype is built, how those brands are built.
I mean, craft beer, is it a fraternity? It seems like it's a big fraternity.
I mean, I guess
the commonality between people that dig it.
There's definitely certain personality traits that we share with most of the other breweries. We all get along pretty well and like to share info, and we're excited about what we do, so it's easy to get along.
Yeah, everybody gets hazed.
Then they really get along.
Yeah, man.
Everybody gets a hazy IPA,
Pretty easy to get along over a beer.
Yeah.
So talk about recipes for a second.
All right.
Without talking about recipes, but just the nature of recipes.
Yeah.
Is it like, you and I open a restaurant and you have your grandmother gave you a recipe for spaghetti, and all of a sudden people fucking dig it, and we have a special sauce on there and it's made a certain way, and you protect that, right? And then we might tweak it a little bit, and then we tweak it and it goes bad, and we go back to the original and we do tweak it again, and we constantly screw with it, but it's a thing, and it's our proprietary thing.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing with beer?
No.
It's not that way? You're not closely guarding your recipe?
No. There used to be some trade secrets and stuff in the industry, but for the most part,
surprised by that.
Everybody's trying to further the product. Like part of the Master Brewers Association of the Americas, it's a organization in North America, and we get together in certain districts and stuff and basically share knowledge with each other because we want to see beer get better.
Like, what do you mean share knowledge? Give me an example.
We talk about cleaning processes.
Okay.
Here's what's working for me. Somebody comes to the table with a problem. I've been having this problem, so on and so on. We solve each other's problems for each other. We just talk about things that we've learned. There are bigger breweries with much smarter people looking at things like all the compounds found in hops. Okay. And what do they do at certain temperatures? Okay. What do they do when they interact with yeast? And it's all an open book for everybody.
But the flavor of your beer.
Yes.
So from can to can, so you have the consistency from case to case, right?
Right.
You want that consistency, so they know it's your product, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a formula? Isn't that a list of ingredients that?
It is, but it's not something that can't be replicated. I mean, any good brewer could take a sip of this Oktoberfest that I made and probably brew something pretty close to it.
Based on taste.
Based on taste, yeah. If they know what they're doing, they can probably get pretty close. I know that I can drink certain beers and already pick out 2 or 3 of the hops in it, unless there's a dozen.
Wow.
Because if it's a nice simple recipe, you can pick out those flavors. I mean, just like I don't know, making chicken noodle soup, man. It's chicken broth and noodles and carrots, celery, onions, and then everybody's got their own little seasoning or whatever. But you say this one's saltier than that one. This one's got pepper in it.
Yeah, but I mean, for each brand to have consistency from case to case, they have to have their own thing, right? It's
Spirit's
same thing,
Well, you're
right?
talking like the recipe is more like not just the ingredients; it's also like the chemistry of it.
Yeah,
the
that's
water,
what
there's a process.
water temperature,
Right. Well, yeah,
time
got
when you
it.
put in.
Got
Like
the-
when you do an oatmeal stout, like you throw into the dark roasted malt, like the malts, like the dark malted, like barleys and different and different ingredients that go into that at certain times through the process of the brewing.
Okay.
And the hops and different times the hops go in, like you can really screw up a beer pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like people like it's not as easy as you think, but consistency is just doing exactly the same thing over and over again. But
Consistency is probably the hardest part of one of the hardest parts of brewing. On a small scale, the big breweries, AB InBev, and when you get a Coors or something like that, there's a lot of money and effort put into making sure that tastes exactly
Quality
the same
control.
every time. For small breweries, that's very difficult to pull off. But
I've been in Rolling Rock.
We figured out.
Rolling Rock in Latrobe when it's City Brewing. I got a tour of the whole place in depth from an old friend that worked there, and their control center's like 4,000 square feet.
Really?
It's insane. Yeah, it's the real deal. Chemistry labs, offices, because that place now is a contract brewing, so they got a lot. It's not just making one beer.
Yeah.
They're making all beer for Sam Adams, Guinness, Blue Point.
Okay, so how's that work? So if you were, let's say you did that. Let's say you contracted with another company to come in and do, let's say you were going to brew Bonafide, and then this guy down the street wanted to contract with you to brew his particular beer too. And you worked out a deal and did it. So he would give you a certain recipe, and the recipe includes time and other things.
Usually.
I'm so confused. And so, because there has to be a certain finite script to it, right?
It is. I mean, there's a recipe, that it just depends on your process, really.
Okay.
If you use different water or there's heating systems on breweries that can be run with electric elements.
Okay.
They can be a gas burner, or it can be a steam jacket on this kettle that heats it. And depending on which of those 3 you're using, can make the beer taste very different.
Got it.
Right, via caramelization and things like that. So process, equipment, where you're sourcing the ingredients from, those are all factors. So that recipe, take it at face value. I knew whenever I started Butler Brew Works that the homebrew recipes that we had were brewing 10-gallon batches.
Okay.
I scaled them up. I read everything I possibly could on how to make this beer taste the same at
volume.
At a bigger volume.
Right.
I knew it wasn't going to taste the same.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. But once you stick with it, then you figure out how to make your system consistent. Taking it somewhere else is very difficult to replicate.
It just seems it would have to be, to me, an outsider looking at it, would have to be so specific. Like the Coca-Cola recipe is one way, and a Pepsi recipe is another way, right?
Oh, yeah.
You would think.
Yeah, but
'cause
craft beer's not like. I mean, it's one thing if you're Sierra Nevada, that's where consistency is important. But craft beer, it's like it's so easy to just be like, we're going to change the hops up. We're going to do the exact same beer, but we're just going to add a different hop, and we don't have to be expected to have consistency there.
Okay.
Like craft beer, I feel kind of.
Is that part of the industry, part of the thing of craft beer?
To an extent.
Evolves.
To an extent. I mean,
It's fluid.
He makes a Kolsch that is the consistent Kolsch that
Right.
people expect every time.
Right.
And he has staple beers, but those are the beers you always have to be consistent on. But
You'll see comments from people who enjoy local craft breweries. They'll say, "Wow, this batch is really good. I like it a lot better
I've
than
heard
the last
people
one."
say that.
So
Okay.
they're comfortable with it. They're used to it. It's still a mission of ours to make it as consistent as possible. But when you're working on small scale equipment, and it's not the most expensive stuff in the world, then you can run into things like something clogged or a valve didn't open that day. So the beer sat a little longer at this temperature than it normally does. It changes it. And it's minimal, but it's something. And it's something that in those large breweries, that doesn't happen. If that happens, that beer hits the drain.
Yeah. We've had a chiller at Four Seasons. We had a chiller shut down on us, and the beer, it was a collaboration with Full Pint with Barrett Goddard.
Yeah.
And the beer was sat room temperature for like 12 hours when it was supposed to be chilled at like 35.
Yeah.
And or something like that. And it ended up being the best beer we probably ever made. And I remember Barrett saying, like, whatever you did, figure that process out.
Did you know what you did?
Yeah. My business partner definitely, like, we, to an extent, but we were like draining the coolant because it was a jacketed, which means like coolant runs through the walls, the wall jacketed, so they keep it cool. And we eventually got it going, but it was kind of funny how it ended up being a pretty delicious beer.
That happens
by mistake.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of breweries out there that have became very successful because of a misfired batch, for say, sold it, people fell in love with it, and they're like, well, let's try to recreate it. And they figured it out, and it's a good marketing.
It's like an accident.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it
happy
Allagash?
accident.
What was the one brewery that snuck in? They got shut down for like somebody had like weed or marijuana at the brewery.
I didn't hear
about
that
And then
one.
they snuck back in while they were shut down for like 30 days because of it, and brewed a beer like during shutdown, like kind of like, you know,
that's Lagunitas.
Lagunitas, yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
Shut down. What the hell was the story? I forget. They have a beer called
during COVID. You mean during the shutdown?
No, this is years ago.
This was, they got shut down for something, and
marijuana related.
Top secret shut down. Something is the name of the beer. Yeah,
So they all snuck in and brewed a beer while they were not supposed to be in the facility whatsoever. And they made a hype thing out of it. And it's like, you know, all the...
And I know you fucking love that, don't you?
I'm not defiant at all.
Yeah.
And you love that branding.
Yeah.
That's the idea stuff that you dig.
Yeah, just those things, you know, and the sellability of it, it's that little extra bells and whistles that really set people apart.
There's no question about that. What about all these specialty beers? Like, are you going to do things like that? Will it be a Bonafide Christmas ale? Will it be a Bonafide chocolate ale? Will it be a Bonafide?
Yeah, variety is still very important. As much as we want to have these staple beers that people can rely on, people crave variety, and we'd be stupid not to do that. So, there's not a roadmap to it right now, but we'll definitely keep some things rotating.
Give me examples of unusual ingredients in beers like that. I mean, I've seen like peppers. I've seen like chocolate. I've seen vanilla,
milk, like lactose. Lactose to me blows my mind that people have to put lactose in beer.
Yeah, lactose, milk sugar.
Yeah,
it's a non-fermentable sugar, so you can put it in and keep the beer sweet. Yeast doesn't need it.
I always thought Guinness was like a chocolate milkshake. I think you had to put milk in actual.
Yeah. I think fruit is a big thing. I feel the last year or two.
Ton of fruit in
I
here
had
right now.
Sam Adams cherry wheat back in the 90s. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. That was like the only Sam Adams I liked. It was so sickeningly sweet.
That's funny.
It's a lot different now. I mean, you can pour a glass of beer out that looks like this lava lamp, honestly, with like chunks of pulp and everything going through them.
That's crazy.
It's a little overboard, but people seem to be into this smoothie style beer or dessert. These decadent beers that I can drink like half a can of, and then I'm going to the doctor to get my sugar checked. So
you call it a dessert beer, like a dessert wine, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like a brandy.
Pastry stouts and
pastry
stouts. People making these big syrupy stouts that they want to taste like birthday cake, or they want it to taste like a cinnamon roll or something. They call them pastry stouts. Smoothie sour beers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff like that right now.
Yeah. I like the idea of like Bourbon County, Goose Island, the Bourbon County. Every year they come out with a new like every year it's a bourbon barrel aged stout,
Okay.
and it's something that you would collectors would get. Right, it's
All
sought
right.
out after every year. It's only released once a year. Things like that appeal to me in the
Okay.
marketability.
Okay.
Like getting what we would call like members, that would always follow us and be like, when we do certain releases, do it limited. But the cross promoting with different breweries, other breweries, but also distilleries and wineries, throwing our beer in a wine barrel or a champagne or or a port barrel. But also throwing some of our beers in different kind of whiskeys, whether it's a rye whiskey barrel or a bourbon barrel aged barrel. We'll be able to, because of the influence of what I do with different all these wineries and distilleries, and some other breweries. And Travis has already kind of been doing it for years now with different bourbon barrel aged style beers and different things like that. Like, I'm looking forward to doing it on a much bigger production.
Got it.
I'm going to have almost, in a sense, a limitless amount of used barrels that we can throw our beers in.
Got it.
And say he makes a stout, we can put it in a bourbon barrel, a rye barrel, we can put it in a port barrel, we can do whatever, and then just, put it in different bottles or cans and sell it as a package and be like, we're not going to tell you if it's good. Buy it first. So, but yeah, I got 4. I got 2017, 18, 19, 20 of the Bourbon County from Goose Island. Anthony, who I talked about, who wants to brew beer for Travis.
Oh, he's always picking those up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's finding them on the shelf somewhere and scooping them.
What's the time frame of brewing a batch of beer?
Usually 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the style you're making.
It's longer than I thought.
Yeah. Ales, using a particular kind of yeast. Most beers, especially craft beers out there, are ales, can be done in about 3 weeks. And then
What's the difference between beer and ale?
Molecular,
beer is right.
Beer is the broad term. There are categories of beer, being ales, lagers.
Okay.
Wild
okay.
fermented sours.
All right, go through the basics for me.
Okay, you have beer.
Beer.
We're done. God-made beer.
Yeah, there's so many styles of beer, but basically, from the top, they're broken out into 2 categories: ales and lagers.
Okay.
Ales are traditionally from the UK. They were brewing like ESBs, these bitter beers. That's where the first IPAs came from.
Okay.
So the yeast ferments at the top. It can ferment at room temperature and likes it there. Lagers, the yeast ferments at the bottom and takes a lot longer and likes to be colder. So, and they go through this whole process of conditioning. There's a lot of care and time that goes into making a lager.
Okay.
Your standard beers you're used to seeing out, Budweiser, Coors, all that stuff, those are lagers. The American version of the lager, but there's within lager, within ale, there are all these other styles. IPA, stouts are ales, amber ale, and then there's also amber lager. And it just comes down to what ingredients you're putting in and the type of bitterness and color that you're coming out with it. So
what's malt liquor?
Malt liquor is basically beer without hops. So you're using malted grains like barley, wheat, and rye, corn, rice, usually in malt liquors.
Okay.
You're not hopping it. Sometimes they're being flavored with syrups and things like that. So if there's no hops in it, you can't call it beer. You have to call it malt liquor.
Okay. Is that still prevalent? I mean, the only ones I ever heard of was Schlitz.
Bonafide's bringing it back.
Are you serious?
Actually, I forget how long ago this was, but the brewery Dogfish Head, if you're familiar with them, made a malt liquor, and it came in a 40 in a paper bag. And I thought it was brilliant. I wish I could have tried it. It was just something funny for them to do. I'm sure it was the best malt liquor that exists, but
we could do like a small 2-barrel batch of it just because we can, and literally hand fill it in the 40, 40s, and cap it ourselves. And
that's funny.
It'd be like just a marketing gimmick. Get a malt liquor from Bonafide, and I bet half the people wouldn't even drink it. They probably just put it on a shelf and just like something that
stare at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And that's that collectible thing we talked about before, which I can relate to from the marketing side is, whiskeys, collectible whiskeys. And we just, I had a NATO branded Scotch. As a matter of fact, I have it in the other room here, and I had 2 casks of this, or it was something. I don't know. I think it was distilled in '92. And on one of the prior podcasts, my buddy just kind of killed it off. But I was given that as a gift like 15, 20 years ago, and he said it was just the most unbelievable tasting thing because it aged so well. But there was the NATO, a military guy had given it to me, and it was celebrating so many years of NATO, and there was all this branding that went around that. And I was looking on the internet, like, it's amazing if you can find one of those, what they were selling for. I should have found this out before he drank it. But it's amazing there's a collectible thing for that.
Yeah.
People collect that stuff.
They do.
Oh yeah, I got
It's crazy.
I got some beers from Strange Roots. The one with the I don't know what it was like. Once a year, it's like
The Plague.
The Plague.
Yeah.
The Plague. I think the last 2 or 3 years on me now, which is like I could probably sell those for like $500 for.
That's
3 of them.
crazy.
To the right collector. Yeah,
That's crazy.
Like people that follow Strange Roots or that might have drank theirs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but those beers they'll sit in a bottle for years and years to come. So
A lot of trading groups online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though that's not legal,
yeah,
but people are doing
It's a whole cottage
it's only
industry.
illegal if you get caught.
it. Yeah.
That's the story of life, pal.
That's gonna be a beer name someday.
Knowing you, probably.
Maybe.
Probably.
I'm a law-abiding citizen. I swear. That's
What? When's the launch date?
He had to ask that question, didn't he?
Well, you knew it was coming. You guys had all this time to prepare for that question. I was the only one you had to worry about.
I'd say we just don't have one right now. We're both busy individuals with a lot
Right.
going on.
Right,
we
right.
put as much time in on a weekly basis as we can to this business, but it's always as soon as possible.
it's one of the reasons why I'm not in a big hurry is that why you don't know where this economy is going to go. Worst case scenario, I could probably, we could figure there's other case scenario. There's other avenues of revenue here that we could use the space for.
Got it.
But best case scenario is that we open back up because at 50% capacity, like how much, like, you know what I mean? Like it would pay for itself, the rent and different things like that. But really at the end of the day is like it's kind of hard to flourish at the speed that we're capable of flourishing at if we're
With limitations.
limited. Yes. So it's kind of like, all right, well, what's nice about the spring and summer is that we have some outdoor capacity for like maybe up to 16 chairs or something like that.
Okay.
And maybe even further. So like plus
Okay.
the occupancy inside and stuff like that. Or do we only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we are only reservations only, and we do really nice charcuterie boards and like cheeses and stuff like that. And you essentially, when you sign up to come, you're paying for like minimum $50 a person to come and hang out at our spot.
Yeah, the
Like,
experience.
That's not the craft beer world though. They're not used to that.
It's
a
not.
New York thing, right?
Yeah, probably more so. But like Pittsburgh, yeah, it's people they're not gonna want to go sit at a bar and be forced to buy anything. They're gonna want to come in and do a flight, maybe buy a pizza, and then skedaddle.
It's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's Pittsburgh. But there are clientele that are like that. I've talked to people.
I can see a blend of two.
Yeah.
Be open to let people come in and get to know us and see what the place is all about. But then make that private aspect available because currently that is desirable. Say, I've got 20 friends I want to bring in,
Yeah.
and I don't want to have to worry about half of them not being able to come in or whatever.
Point.
It's our place for the night.
Good point.
Yeah, and that could be the thing is like when we use it like for private parties.
Yeah.
Like up to like whatever the occupancy is and stuff like that. And yeah, well, there's different things that we could do with the space. Because so many restaurants are like what I'm finding, because a lot of people are reaching out to us about renting out 1,700 for private parties or half the floor and all this stuff. And we're like, well, if you do rent out half the floor, it's going to be $5,000 because you need to make us more money than we would as if you
Absolutely.
didn't take up half the occupancy.
Absolutely.
And even out in the parking lot, half the occupancy, we're like, well, we do these numbers normally on a Saturday. You need to pay us half that minimal. Plus, there's no open bar.
Right.
Yeah,
And they're like, what?
Right.
And they're like,
you're not just turning down, like when somebody takes over your place, you're not just turning down the revenue that would have been coming through the door. You're turning down new customers.
No doubt. There's
People,
a cost to
people that might have
That's
been
the
coming
intangible.
back. They come up and say, "Well, we're not allowed in." That might be the last time they ever come to your door.
yeah.
So you got to pay
There's
for
risk
that.
involved. Yeah, and if people want to do it, they got to pay a premium for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you, have you two fleshed out the actual quote unquote recipe for what this beer is going to taste like?
I have several versions. There's going to be some small test batches very soon. It's kind of what I've been working on. It's tricky because some of the ingredients I want to use are newer products or newer varieties of hops or things like that, and you don't know if they're going to make them next year or if it does well enough. And
What do you mean? What do you mean?
There are constantly new varieties of hops coming out.
Okay.
They crossbreed them. There's all these programs
I didn't
out
know
there.
that.
Yeah, there's a ton of varieties. Some of them stick around, some of them don't. I can always go back to classic hops that I know are widely available, but trying to create a unique product. So I've got a few things.
So you might get stuck if you use a hop that's available at the time that you launch, and you get married to that taste, and then it's no longer available a year from now.
Well, then
the
you gotta
scalability.
work on replicating the flavor with different hops.
That sounds like a lot of work, man.
It is. I mean, the better you get to know your ingredients, the easier it is to do. Yeah. But it never gets easy.
Yeah, that's the goal of like the two mainstream beers that we talk about, like the classic hazy IPA and a classic lager, is building a recipe that you don't really have to worry about not having the hops.
Mm-hmm.
People, small breweries, they come up with these delicious beers, and then when they go to scale up, when they go from a 7-barrel system to a 30-barrel system, and they're trying to pump it out, they can't. They have hop contracts where you pretty much essentially say, okay, I'm going to buy 1,000 pounds of this hops in 2021.
Got it.
And when it's November and you only use 600 of those hops, they're shipping you the other 400, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
you're on the hook.
Yeah, you're on the hook. So you better be.
How long do they keep? If you get hop shipped in,
there's flowers and then there's pelletized as well.
Okay.
So there's two different. Travis can lend to that.
Yeah, pelletized hops last quite a bit of time. There's a shelf stability factor that tells you there's these alpha and beta acids that you pay attention to in the hops, and sometimes they decrease over time depending on how the hops are stored. But I mean, it really depends. I mean, I know people that have hops in a freezer right now from 2014.
Wow.
That still tastes great. They do a great job, but they did lose some of those alpha acids, and it's not going to make the beer quite as bitter. So yeah, you just stay aware of those things, and you can hold on to them indefinitely. Some people are even aging hops.
For a particular taste.
For sour beers, yeah, and this is going to sound super weird, but if you age hops with oxygen introduced and a slightly humid environment, they can take on sort of a cheesy flavor.
Okay.
Which again sounds super weird, but in particular sour style beers,
Wasn't
wild
this
sours,
the fermentation processes?
You can get those funky flavors in fermentation,
Okay.
and that's typically when people want to have these aged hops on hand
Okay.
to complement it.
Okay.
They don't want bright, fresh, vibrant floral hops. They want something that's, more like the beer they brewed. But
I like blue cheese.
yeah, right?
I like
you
lamp.
You can get blue cheese.
So I'm just trying to flesh out this process. So you've got a couple different recipes.
Yeah.
And then the two of you will drink these and decide what's the best based
I'll brew them
upon.
on a 5 or 10 gallon system at home.
Yeah.
And
The
then
fun
Okay.
thing with making beer, like once you've made, so many different beers and it's, but what you do, you don't really come up with a bad recipe.
Okay.
The
just
ingredients are
different.
also, they're just a little different, right?
Yeah.
So whatever comes out, you might say, this is great. You know what? It's going to make it better on the next batch is if we do this or we change that, So it's almost hard once you've made it so many times to come up with a bad recipe. Mm-hmm. It happens, but rarely.
when you're as good as Travis.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
There you go.
Let's not
That's
forget
not-
that he's an award-winning brewer.
That's
on a
not
national
tooting
level.
my horn. That's that's tooting the horn of all brewers.
Let's just say I like doing business with people that don't know what they're doing. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm doing business with Travis because he's an amazing brewer. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And he's a great friend. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm not tooting his horn. I'm not going to be like, you make the best beer ever. And it not being true because that's not the point. The point is to, like, he makes the beer part, making the beer easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when really selling it and building a brand is easy for me, I
Yeah.
think. And,
Yeah.
I like so we're flipping that switch. A lot of breweries do it different. We're doing it backwards
Yeah.
almost. We're
Got it.
going scale first.
Got it.
We have the infrastructure, which almost all breweries don't
It
have,
just makes sense, though.
and we don't have to sell
Yeah.
our territorial rights to be able to do it. We can do it direct, right? And it gives us the opportunity to eventually build out more tap rooms around the state.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the front of house experience. He knows the give and take of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm learning that and building that business model now.
Right.
And what makes sense and what doesn't, and where we flourish and where we don't, as far as the cocktail program or wine program or the beer program, and how well we do with selling other breweries' beer there as well, just not ours. And that's something that's pretty competitive. I feel that the PA beer market, I'm going to say it because I like to think it should become something, is that breweries should start selling more of other breweries' beers.
Okay.
I feel that they should like cross promote with each other. You give me a tap, I'll give you a tap for a half keg worth, and then we're gonna swap out, and then that's it. Like, we're gonna buy a
Well,
keg
it gives
from
the
each
consumer
other.
a better experience at your location, right?
Yeah, when they know that there's always gonna be, like, you know, say there's a 15 tap system,
Yeah.
3 of those taps are now dedicated to rotating beers from other PA breweries.
Yeah.
Now you know, like, when you go there, like, oh, they have other beers.
They have
too.
options.
Yeah, they have options. People love options.
Of course.
Yeah. So
Yep.
It's America. That's what we do here.
America,
Yeah, that's what we do here.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know if would you say a lot of breweries do that now? Like,
Not a lot. It is something that we do once in a while. Usually, we're trying to fill a space in our tap lineup. You know, we look and we're like, shoot, we don't have this type of beer on tap right now. You know what? Call one of these guys, like our close circle of other breweries,
Right.
and say, do you guys want to trade a keg? And we'll do that.
I can't see how that could be a bad thing.
It's not. It really isn't. I think, you know, it depends on where we're at in Butler. We have to create that experience, that variety, appeal to a broader customer base. I think a lot of breweries in Pittsburgh and big cities in general can come up with something very niche, and they hone in on it, and they've got enough following because there's a bigger population to come and support that one thing that they
Got
do.
it.
They don't need to create this mass appeal, right? So for us, we do have to focus on a little more mass appeal up in Butler.
Right.
But
right.
I can see why, you know, Pittsburgh breweries are like, nope, our beers, this is what we do. If you don't like it, go to the other brewery.
Yeah.
And they don't care. They've got a big enough customer base.
yeah, there's law abiding. You have to sell 51% of your own beer by the glass versus anything else that you sell that's by the glass, whether it's wine, spirits, or other people's beer. 51% of your total monthly sales by the glass has to be your own product.
Now, help me understand this. Does the restaurant have responsibility to report those numbers to the state, or do they have to be in place in case they're audited?
In place in case you're audited.
You're
Okay.
always if you're running a brewery, winery, or distillery, or even a restaurant with a liquor license, and in the mindset that you're never going to get audited, then you already failed.
Right.
Like, everything should be run with a bona fide accountant,
Yeah.
and
In case you were audited tomorrow.
exactly.
Right.
And everybody should, like, with the PPP, the SBA, EIGL, COVID, like, all this craziness is that you should expect to get audited in the next year or two, because everybody's kind of shown their colors. Everybody's really shown their numbers. Like, if you apply for the PPP, like, you really just showed the government everything that you have.
Right.
And your
Right.
staff, like, it was a great way to collect data.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you that from, you know, and so now, like, you know, you might have poked the bear if your numbers don't really line up very well, and
Yeah.
you might have got the PPP money.
I can tell you that getting the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board to talk to Department of Revenue is a very difficult thing to do. So if they actually pull this off and they were collecting all this data all along to actually analyze it, I'd be impressed. I really would. Because we've had to go through so many things when we're reporting taxes or renewing our license where they're like, we didn't get this information from Department of Revenue or, you know, like we didn't see your paid taxes and whatever. And like, we have to like hold hands to get all this information to where it's supposed to be.
Right.
So I would be seriously surprised if...
Hey man, the government's great. The government's great.
You never know. You never know. So, can I guess that maybe kind of there's a possibility you might launch this summer?
Yeah, that's my intention.
Yeah.
100%. So,
yeah, I think we're more than capable of making that happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't like to put hard dates on it because it's just well, and then like the more time we
Travis,
take.
when are you getting married?
Yeah.
Oh!
I'm just not, and my girlfriend's gonna watch this and she's gonna be like, no, we're not getting married. So I'm okay with that.
That's what we do here.
Yeah, I mean that's the same thing for me. Like Christian, you're 38. When are you gonna when are you gonna settle down and get married? I'm like, meh. But yeah,
no, the more time we take with this, the more ideas we come up with. Not that we just want to drag our feet for years, but we've already made a couple little changes to what we want to do, and we come up with more ideas. So just makes the execution that much better.
Yeah,
you just don't know whether you're going to have like in-house food or you're going to have.
Well, I like the idea of doing sourdough pancakes on the weekends. We haven't figured that out 100% just yet.
What?
So,
even though we're across the street from Pamela's.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yes. But Pamela's doesn't have alcohol. We do.
Well, that's true.
That is true too.
So finding a way for the brunchers and like the breakfast people that are looking like when they're waiting for an hour outside of Pamela's.
Do you like whiskey on your pancakes?
Yeah, right. But something in that realm. But regardless of where we do it, we'll put the charcuterie board, just something simple. That's real easy. You don't need a deep fryer or even a skillet for that or a hood system or anything like that. So it's like pretty simple.
I think there's going to be some food in some aspect. We've been back and forth on it for a long time, but I think the last time we actually stood in that kitchen brewery area that we're in, we just said we have to do something.
Yeah.
So and I actually have someone we were talking to that that might work out really well for that. So I don't spill the beans on it or anything, but yeah, I think we're gonna make something happen.
Outsourcing it, the foods to me isn't about making money. I mean, even the location, it'll make money and it will be a nice little profitable thing, but it will be the next chapters, like the bigger chapters that we're looking at with Hazelwood, which hopefully is something that comes a part of our whole business plan, and that's Travis has been essentially like a consultant for this project in Hazelwood, where it's what is it, a 12,000 square foot building?
Yeah, I think it's about 12,000.
Yeah, and then or maybe even 20 all 3 floors. It's huge.
It's a big building.
3 floors.
Yeah, three breweries side by side in their own like area with 3 different brewery setups.
Okay.
And funnels into one canning line and probably kegging line to some extent. But then the second floor has like offices and restaurant bar. And then the third floor has restaurant, seating and rooftop deck, and then it has an outdoor backyard area that's probably like a quarter of an acre large. Like it's huge.
Wow.
So that's been something that's been going down for a couple years, and we're not like locked and loaded just yet, but I would say we're definitely the top couple breweries that are going to be going in there, being considered. Nothing's signed and dated just yet, but we would like to think that because of Travis's consulting and that group that's running this project knows me really well and knows that I have the gumption to be able to handle a business model like this, but that would be where we would have our big production, 10-barrel system, hopefully a 10-barrel system, and being able to turn out like the big we'd be having our canning line there and bigger production and stuff like that. But that would be, I would say, who knows, Hazelwood might be where we throw everything into cans except for a little bit of beer into kegs. Okay. And then for the pounders and the 16 ounce for more of like the people waiting in line to buy the beer and stuff like that. But still contracting out for the 12 ounce cans. It's more for the commercial market.
Got it. Are the major brewers the big five, are they pushing back against craft? Do you see it? What are they doing?
They're buying us. They're coming in and picking
That's
up.
okay too, right?
Hey,
You're
yeah.
on the right, if you're on the right side of that.
It can be. There's some good and bad that comes with it, but because small breweries are tapping into their market share, they decided to just go and start buying them and buy back their market share. So they have. I mean, there's almost 7,000 breweries or maybe more in the country by now. I mean, 9 opened up in the pandemic in Pittsburgh. So
damn,
it's crazy. But they're strategically buying some that they know that they can work with.
Okay.
They usually dump a ton of money into the brewery, give great benefits to the employees, offer up all this, R&D money so that they can just do whatever they've wanted. They make dreams come true when they come in.
Right, of course. It's the offer super sweet.
Absolutely. So, but when you look at the long game,
on the face of it, anyways,
most people see what the long game for those transactions is that they buy up enough of them, they take back enough of the market share, they close them back down and get back to doing business as usual.
Know how to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's some good that comes with it, absolutely. But ultimately, you're funneling your money into Europe when you buy those products. They get to mask themselves as a small local brewery.
Yeah, for a period of time.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Bonafide for me is it's the kind of prove a point, but also like scale up to the point of where that you could be scalable to a large buyer like InBev or Budweiser or Coors and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying I'm a sellout or by any means, but for my business concept and what our business concept is like, see what happens. Why not be one of the first that did it completely different, build a brand on a different level or a different path,
right.
And prove the point. And I'd like to think that we have a just as good a chance as any of the top breweries in Pennsylvania, that we will be able to be that place. With the infrastructure that my company has to sell it, opening up shop in Philadelphia here very soon, we're going to have representation statewide.
Yeah.
Like right out of the gate. So,
and like you said, it's almost you're doing it backwards from the standard model.
That's me, a reverse thinker.
Yeah, it's just smart. Yeah, I think it's smart.
Sometimes, not always.
If it works,
if it works. But worst case scenario is, guess what? Like, we still have multiple locations of breweries. We're making beer. We're living our dream. And if it doesn't ever get bought out by like InBev, like I'm not betting on those apples at all. But what I'm getting at is that with that mentality and that growth, it would definitely be it would be a cash flow positive company. I can guarantee that with,
that's the worst that happens.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, shit.
Right.
Shoot big. I always say I have a number on what like I would like this. Like if I was ever going to sell my entire company in like 20 years from now, what that number would be. And even if I came up with 10% of that, I'm still living a really good retirement.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where my mindset's at.
I got it. Is there something uniquely sad about that, though? In that, and this is an older person talking to a younger person, that the mindset in today's business seems to be build it, create it, and then get rid of it and cash out. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm a capitalist to the core. I get it, and I probably would do the same thing.
Right.
But there's maybe is the romantic in me kind of, you would like to kind of think there's got to be some entrepreneurs that would want to keep that independence and enjoy the journey so much that they would bypass like selling it off to I don't know.
There are. I mean, there's plenty of people that are just like, go away, don't even put the number in front of me.
Really, those firms are out there?
There are. I mean,
I don't see them anywhere.
I know Sam Caggione of Dogfish Head famously talks about getting letters in the mail about with a number on them, getting Dogfish Head bought out.
Okay.
And he just,
really
circular file.
Okay.
So that does happen because they're holding on to the dream. And honestly, his business is doing well enough that he
can do that.
He can do that, right? Yeah. But when you have
when the number gets big enough,
when the number
and
gets
makes
big
your
enough,
eyeballs roll enough, then
Yeah. What I mean, who could turn down an early retirement and have all of your problems taken care of for the rest of your life? But yeah, it does lose that romanticism. There's lots of businesses that I think people fall out of touch with because of that. I think you see once the money comes into it, the big fish eats a little fish and blows the brand up. People flock to it and they're doing well, but ultimately it doesn't have the same personal touch, the same feeling as it used to. Yeah. And then it's yesterday's news.
Yeah, I would say I'd be more keen to not sell my company. I would maybe, like, if my son wanted to take it over, sell him a chunk, or like sweat equity type of thing, and he buys shares from me like every year until I'm dead. And he has to essentially pay me. He's going to keep me thriving in my retirement by essentially letting me stay on the payroll. I think that's how my parents have it set up. My mom and my uncle, they're essentially, when they retire, they're going to continue to always get their salary, and but they'll be giving up, I think, their bonuses or something like that that they were getting. But my end game isn't necessarily. I mean, my end game for Pennsylvania is I don't know. I'm just doing Pennsylvania right now. Right. I got 49 other states to conquer. So whether that's selling my own branded brands of wine, spirits, or beer, or selling other brands products, learning that that captain audience, but that's what I want to learn it. I learn what Pennsylvania can and can't do, and what the tribulations of that. But,
and are we a pretty restrictive state generally, as far as states go in terms of alcohol?
Yeah, but it's also, it's very small a group of people that really, really support local spirits and beer. I think there's still a lot of people out there still buying mainstream stuff.
Got it. We
haven't filtered those people out yet. There's the millennials, people in their 20s and 30s now. Right. By the time they're in their 50s or 60s, all they're gonna drink, all they're gonna really know is local. They never.
That's great.
It is.
That's where my head's at, is not thinking about it now. What's going to happen in 20 years from now, 25 years from now, where my company has the essentially the mark on all local spirits and wines in the state. We're working with Giant Eagle, and he's like, dude, I looked at your portfolio, and you guys carry products that I already sell, but I don't want to have to deal with individual producers anymore. I can just deal with Pennsylvania Libations.
Right.
Now I can get Butler Brew Works, Strange Roots, Bonafide, all these different wineries, all these different distilleries once they go privatized.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. So, but Pennsylvania might be enough for me. Low-hanging fruit right here. So that's why not create another brand with Travis, who makes another great beer. And it'd be really hard to make so much beer that we would have to start selling it outside of Pennsylvania. There's 12,000 buyers.
There's a lot of beer drinkers in Pennsylvania.
Exactly. And so 12,000 bars and restaurants. I don't know how much beer, you sell to 100 bars and restaurants around Western PA right now, maybe?
Yeah, I think we have roughly 100 accounts under our belt.
Wow.
And you know how much beer you have to make to kind of now multiply that by
that's
6,000, or not 6,000, but 600.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of beer.
It's a lot.
It's called scaling.
Yeah.
Which there's probably no brewery in Pennsylvania other than La Trobe and the old Rolling Rock could actually make enough beer for that.
Right.
But then you're so big, that's above my pay grade as far as distribution goes.
Yeah,
now representation, I could have some monitor, people monitor other reps and stuff, brand ambassadors. But yeah, that's a whole other monster. But
yeah.
Did you guys have fun?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I appreciate this.
Let's do this later on tomorrow.
Do whatever you want. There seems to be an audience. I don't know why, but there seems to be an audience for what we're doing. But
beer.
That might be it. Guys, I really appreciate it, man. And I wish you the best, and it's going to be fun to watch this go.
Yeah.
It really is.
Thank you.
It's going to be fun to watch this go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll both be back. If you'll come back, I would have you back for sure.
Absolutely.
Maybe in some different formats too. We'll talk about that. But
cool.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Christian, thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Travis.
Absolutely, Eric.
All right, friends, we are out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.